ever stop to think about the stories we believe, but which were never actually told? Many of the traditions and images we have about the definitions arose from interpretations and cultural misunderstandings. For example, Eva really ate an apple, and the three wise men were even kings. Discovering the truth is not discrediting faith, but enrich our vision. Prepare to meet 6 myths and be by reality behind the legends. Let's start. Apple in the Garden of Eden. The idea that the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden was an apple is one of those scars that, so repeated, ended up rooted in traditions. However, we opened up to tears. We will realize that the original text never mentions the word apple. What is really highlighted there is Eva's act of disobedience, and Adam, who decided to eat the fruit of the knowledge of good and do badly. This association with the apple gained strength later on in the Latin translation of the Vulgate, in which the term a light could mean as much harm as an apple. Curious not? Then imagine the cultural impact. From this little bone mess, the apple began to symbolize original sin, starring works of art, folk tales, and even idioms. Like the apple of discord, it's interesting as a simple fruit gained so much symbolic weight. Think about the next time you eat an apple. We'll be participating in a piece of history, centuries, and is still alive in our traditions, that transcends a detail that few attack, but that makes all the difference. To understand the roots of the myth, but is that the only poorly understood detail? In this, there are so many interpretations that were shaped more by culture and less by the sacred texts. An example, let's talk about the famous 3 wise men, who probably weren't kings, not necessarily 3. The 3 wise men are figures that, over the centuries, gained an almost legendary status in the Christmas traditions. Intensively, the Bible does not claim they were kings, nor does it mention how many there were. The text just says that magicians from the east visited Jesus and brought gold gifts. Incense stops. The idea that there were 3 probably came from the mentioned amount of gifts, as an association with was a later addition, perhaps to reinforce the idea of that Jesus was worthy of worship by all classes, even by the nobles. This detail makes room for interesting reflections. For example, imagine yourself presenting someone with something that symbolizes your value. Gold for incense for spirituality, myrrh for humanity. These choices carry one powerful symbolism that goes beyond the material. Today, we can apply that same principle by reflecting on the gifts we give to others. Will be that they translate what we really want to express. It's funny how traditions are born and transformed. And speaking of transformations, the other figure, which has undergone major distortions throughout history, Mary Magdalene, often associated with the idea of a sinful woman. Your true story reveals something very different. Want to know more? Let's find out together. Mary Magdalene as a prostitute. Mary Magdalene is Bruno clear example of how myths can mold a completely different image from the original. Many people believe that she was a prostitute. More unfortunately, intelligence never makes this direct association. This idea emerged around the 6th century. Pope, when the first mixed stories of different women mentioned in this, Mary Magdalene actually was a faithful follower of Jesus and was the first to witness his resurrection. It's impressive how an interpretation error can perpetuated before. Imagine how unfair it would be if someone were remembered by something you never did. The case of Mary Magdalene teaches us the importance of seek the truth from the right sources and not half accept information. In practice, it means questioning, investigate, and why not look beyond traditions? By learning about her story, can we think about how many times we judge, or we are judged in a UNED? Maybe it's time to change this narrative. If she was the first to announce the resurrection, Mary Magdalene represents strength and faith. It's interesting how, amid so many misunderstandings, your true contribution still shines. And speaking of questionable traditions, did you know that the date of Christmas also has its cathedrals? Let's explore what's behind the December 25th. Christmas on the 25th of December is so ingrained in our traditions that few stop to question its origin. Practically he probably does not mention this date as the birth of Jesus. The choice was strategic. Early church decided to Christianize pagan festivals, like birth of the invincible sun, celebrated at that time, It was a way to unite cultures and give new meaning to what was already cold. But was Jesus really born in winter? There are indications that birth happened in another season, maybe in spring. Just imagine shepherds tending their flocks in the open air. On the night the angel announced the birth of Christ. Doesn't look like something typical of a certain harsh winter. This leads us to learn about how traditions adapt to the needs of each era. It's okay to celebrate Christmas in December, but it is interesting to understand what is behind the date and recognize that the meaning is much greater than that the calendar suggests. These nuances make of Christmas an even richer celebration full of history. However, the image we have of Jesus, often shaped by Renaissance paintings, also brings surprises. Ever stop to think about what he really looked like? Let's explore this below. Physical care of Jesus. The trajectory of Jesus is a mystery that, over the centuries, was painted by brushes that are more cultural than historical. The Bible does not describe its features. More unfortunately, the image most of us have in mind, long light hair, blue eyes. Characteristic features comes from European Renaissance art. However, as one man of the Middle East, Jesus probably had the darkest skin, curly or wavy hair, and characteristic features of the region. This contrast makes us question how far our perceptions are shaped by traditions. Think about the strength of an image. She can create empathy, but also distort realities. This leads us to intelligence, what it would be like to perceive Jesus closer to who he really was. One man who lived in one simple and warm culture, very different from that we sometimes see in paintings. Today, with advanced technologies, anthropological studies have even created more realistic representations of how he could have been. Maybe it's time to imagine the connection we have with this figure. So important. This reflection leads us to think about the power of art, the way she shapes rocks, and speaking in visual representations, the angels also suffered one interesting transformation over the centuries. Let's explore this together. Angels with wings and halos. The image of angels with wings and halos is a creation more artistic than actually. Most of the angels described in the appears as ordinary men, wingless or any extraordinary detail. Cherubim and seraphim, yes, has wings, but they are more specific and different figures than we imagine. The popular view was strongly influenced by Greek art, Roman and medieval, that sought to convey an idea of purity and divinity. It's funny how art manages create such powerful symbols, even when they are not directly in the writings. Now think about how it affects our relationship with these heavenly beings. When we imagine angels, we are visualizing nearby protectors or distant and unreachable figures. The concept of angels as ordinary humans who come forward to help reinforces the idea of that goodness may be closer than we think. Maybe the person who put you on the market or gave you valuable advice has been symbolically an angel in your life. This leads us to question whether we are attentive to these small daily interventions. This reflection on angels is a powerful way to deconstruct myths and bring the divine closer to everyday life. And talking about deconstructing myths, how about we put all these pieces together and delve into the real impact of understand these truths? Let's conclude with something special. Along this journey, we unravel myths that seemed like absolute truths and reveal amazing stories that were hidden in plain sight. But the big question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Will be that by better understanding the essence of these narratives, you can change the way you see your faith, their traditions, or even the world around them. Remember too, the truth is not a burden, but a key that opens doors to new possibilities. So how can you apply that in your life? How about starting by questioning the stories that you accept without thinking? Read, search and converse with other people about what you learned here. Breaks the chains of interpretations, simplistic, and allow yourself explore the deep meaning behind every narrative. After all, that's not what appearance invites us to do. Seek and understand the truth with an open heart. And if you want to keep learning and unveiling more about these topics, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Together, we can explore more and discover riches that often go unnoticed. Now it's up to you what you'll find out next.